Hello, Laziali all over the world. Welcome back to another episode of Lazio Lounge. I'm Vittorio Campanile. With me, as usual, Alistair McKenzie. Alistair, plenty things to talk about because it looks like Serie A finally came to a decision. There is plan A, plan B, plan C. A lot of things to talk about. And let's start with yesterday, I would say, with what happened last week, while some of the president of Serie A asked to stop relegation, right? And funny enough, all the team involved in the relegation fight were happy about that, approved that decision. And today, when the PGC and Lega Calcio meet, first thing they did is cancel this agreement. So there's going to be relegation. There's going to be a lot of things going on, Alistair, because football is going to restart again. Nothing's changed. The quarantine is going to be 2 weeks for the full team. So basically, what they said today is it's going to go to the playoff, right?
Yeah. Basically, I mean, it's a bit strange because it's one of these meetings really that made a lot of noise and a lot of people were talking about it, but actually the end result of it has been, in terms of Serie A anyway, pretty much as what we already knew being confirmed. Which is, like you say, the plan B being the playoffs taking place and the plan C being the league being decided on this algorithm that everybody keeps talking about and that is turned into one of the words of the year, I think, in Serie A. But yeah, I mean, it's not something that we weren't already kind of aware of last week, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, the difference now is that it has been made official. That is what's going to happen. What we don't know yet, that still needs to be decided, is what format a playoff or a play out would actually take. And that's the really contentious issue. I think that's going to be the thing that really annoys everybody. I think I've said from the start, I think playoffs are a terrible idea. It's just loses the sporting integrity of the competition immediately because you cannot start a competition with one set of rules and end it with a completely different set of rules. But it goes to show the desperation they have to actually finish this season on the pitch and basically milk as much of that TV money as they can. So I'm really against it, and I really hope it doesn't come to that, and that plan A of actually completing the fixtures manages to happen.
Yes, but unfortunately, they didn't change the quarantine rule. So if one team get a player or a staff member positive, it's finished because they play every 3 days. Being out for 2 weeks means that the Serie A is never going to end like that. And there is a funny thing, Alistair. I don't know if you saw it exactly yesterday, Sunday, if you're listening on Tuesday. I read a couple of journalists that believes that there are a couple of teams that have already positive players that they are hiding them because they're waiting that the Serie A restart and said, hey, we have a positive player. We have to stop. No Serie A. Finished. Notification. We are happy. So
let the conspiracy theories begin.
We are Italian. We love conspiracy. But the fact that not only one journalist, more of them on social account wrote about this is a little bit concerning. Let's not forget that Gasperini went to Valencia in Spain and he was with the coronavirus. What was it? 2 days ago, Commisso, the Fiorentina owner, said, yes, even our manager had coronavirus. Everybody knew it, etc. So, I've got the suspicion that some cases have been hidden. And maybe, Herrero, the Sampdoria owner who asked to stop relegation, maybe know that there is a player or a staff that could be positive and is waiting just to restart the Serie A and said, hey, sorry, we have a player positive. We have to stop.
Well, one of the things we should say that came out of the meeting today as well is that they are going to be really tough on anyone who is seen to be breaking the medical protocol or messing around with the rules here, because it is it's a public safety matter to make these cases clear as soon as possible. And you're going to get in very, very serious trouble if you try and hide the fact that someone's caught coronavirus. And let's be honest, that wouldn't be an easy thing to do anyway, because you'd have the entire squad of players and staff. They'd all be aware of what's going on. And to keep that under wraps that long isn't going to be a thing that I think is realistic. I think it is a conspiracy theory, to be honest, and no more, because they have talked about sanctions for this being, ranging from being docked points to actually being expelled from the league altogether. So I think there are enough deterrents to stop people from trying to do anything cunning, but it does tell you everything you need to know, really, that it is almost the first thing that everybody thought when they saw these rules of, if this happens at a certain point, once football gets underway, we are going to crystallize the table. We are going to use this algorithm. And, before we continue talking about this any longer, I should clarify what this actually means. It's essentially, rather than just average points, which is what some other leagues have used to finish off the league table, it's a case of using average points from home games and average points from away games. It's not really any more complicated than that. So I think the word algorithm makes it sound a little bit more like some sort of really intense mathematical formula, when actually it's relatively simple.
Which I don't think is going to change that much the table. But anyway, that's it. That's what they're talking about. Let's not forget that if the league doesn't end, the Scudetto won't be assigned, and basically this will just decide who goes to the Champions League, Europe League, and who get relegated. So this is a very important point to talk about. And the other thing, Alistair, is Serie A is starting very soon, and they said today that they have to decide before the start of the Serie A how the playoff and play-out will work out, how many teams will be involved, etc., etc. Looking at how clubs' owner have fought in the last week or so, I'm not sure they're gonna find a solution, because we just saw, Cairo asking for stop relegation, and the other one to restart matches, etc. I don't think they're gonna find a solution before the beginning of the season.
It's taken out of the hands of the clubs, though. I think it's just between the FIGC and Del Pino, the president of Serie A. So I don't think it's something that they need the club's permission to decide on the format, thankfully, because, like you say, it would be absolutely impossible to get those clubs to agree on it. Then again, it's going to have to be divisive no matter what way they decide to do it. And going back, without sounding like a broken record, this quarantine rule does mean that this is something that needs discussed. We're not just talking about this because it is some sort of interesting conspiracy theory. We're talking about this because at the moment, unless they change that rule, it looks very likely that this will have to happen, because by the time we get to July, if we still don't have any positive cases at any teams with any staff members or players, considering how many there have been up until now, and the fact that the virus, although it's going down in infection numbers here, is still very much around, it would be a big surprise for nobody to actually get it at all. And then we are in the case of getting playoffs as soon as that happens. So it is something that's realistic. It's not just a theory. This is something we might actually have to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's not forget that numbers are going down, but still in Lombardy, there are a lot of cases. So we know that there are a lot of Serie A clubs there. So the big risk is playing there. It's for those clubs. So, honestly, I don't believe Serie A will end normally. They're going to have to find another option. As you said, I don't like that much the playoff and play out. It's changing the rules halfway there. I know no one could expect the coronavirus, but they at least have to make it clear, right? Juventus, Inter, and Lazio are the only team fighting for the Scudetto. I cannot believe that they're going to add other teams. So, I don't know. I can expect anything from Serie A.
I can believe it, yeah.
So,
Well, that was one of the questions we had. Actually, we did get quite a few questions today, so I might as well start bringing them in. But Laziali just wrote to us saying, "Do you think the season will get finished?" So I think you just answered that. Yeah, you don't think so?
No, it's going to be really difficult. It's true that the numbers are going down, but as I said, club like Milan, Inter, Atalanta are the most dangerous to get other infections. So I don't believe it's going to happen. It's 10%, 20%, can we say? Something like that?
I mean, the other thing is, I mean, the reason that I'm on the same page. I think also under the current conditions, I'd be amazed if it's finished, if it gets finished normally anyway. But the main reason for that is this medical protocol they've agreed on and this quarantine rule. Now, if that is reduced or softened or simply reduced to I'd be amazed if they U-turned now and made it into the Bundesliga model, but even if it's reduced to a week or something like that, it's still possible. You mentioned today that, yes, the meeting today, there's no change, but there wasn't really supposed to be a change today in that regard anyway, because this is something that has to be decided with the government, not between the football authorities, and today was a meeting of football authorities. So they haven't ruled it out. I mean, I think Gravina was asked about it after the meeting today and said that he still hopes that there can be some sort of softening of the rule. I think there has to be. I don't think we can rule out the possibility of them softening the rule yet. But the thing is, I don't understand when they're going to do it if they haven't done it already, because what's the threshold they need to pass? What's the point they need to get to where they suddenly can say, okay, it's fine to do this? Some might point to the fact that in about 10 days, we're going to have cinemas open their doors again. We're going to have theatres opening up. This is something that's even led to the Undersecretary for Health at the government talking about getting fans back in the stadiums, not at full capacity. I think it would be about 10, 20%. But you've had representatives from the government and the football authorities talk about bringing fans back, and yet they're still not willing to budge on this quarantine. There's no consistency here. That's the thing that annoys me about it the most, is that they're doing one thing, and honestly, it's almost like normal life again here in Italy. There's people out in the street, everything's open, you can do almost whatever you want, and yet they still think an entire team needs to go into quarantine for 2 weeks if there's one case.
But for example, bookmakers shops are still closed. Discos are open, schools are closed. This is Italy, so you never know what you're gonna get. But yeah, I totally agree. It's who knows? That obviously we hope that it's going to finish. The season is going to end regularly. Even though we have to say that playing every 3 days, it's a big disadvantage for Lazio, who was the only team on top that didn't have European competition. So that was a big advantage. It's true the other teams will play after the Serie A finish, but it's different to play Champions League after the Serie A finish instead of playing during the Serie A. So, we're going to see. It's going to be a completely different type of football anyway.
Yeah, exactly. We talked about that in length, I suppose, last week, so we won't get back into the 5 subs and everything like that, but it's going to be something else. Honestly, I'm a bit frustrated that we're 12 days away from Serie A restarting and we still don't know what playoff model there's going to be, or if a quarantine rule is going to change or not, or if we're actually going to be able to finish the season. But it kind of has been a bit like this all along, the whole way through, in terms of the decision-making process and the differences of opinion and so on. Today the other thing that was decided, just while we're at it, was that they have ended various other seasons. Serie C, they've promoted 3 teams and relegated another 3 teams, one of which, Rimini, were joint on points and goal difference and goals for and goals against, and still got relegated because they're bottom of the table. So these things are happening lower down, and also in the women's Serie A as well. So these calls are already being made in other parts of the game, but they are doing their best to make sure Serie A and Serie B can finish. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, we just have to wait and see. We have a lot of questions, though. We have Karsten Krog, who's asking what's the status of Milinkovic Savic, Strakosha, and Lulic. Well, Milinkovic Savic is back train again today with the team, so that's very positive. Strakosha came back, what was it, Saturday? Trained back with the team. Lulic is back in Rome. He arrived last week, but he's not fully fit, so he's training on his own, trying to recover. I don't think he's gonna be ready for Atalanta Lazio. Don't know when he's gonna be back, but it's gonna be very difficult to see him playing at the beginning of the restart of the Serie A.
Yeah, I mean, I think the latest thing I read for Lulic was talking about July for his comeback. So yeah, it's definitely not going to be anytime soon. Milinkovic Savic was a bit of good news, though. I mean, I think most of us, when we saw those initial reports coming through earlier this week, might have been a little bit scared, considering as well how many knee injuries and serious muscular injuries have been going around in the last week or 2 weeks, as teams come back to training. So yeah, the fact that he is not only okay but is already back on the pitch training again is a massive relief, because for that little period where you may consider life without Milinkovic Savic, it does make you realise once again the lack of depth we've talked about before and the precarious position I suppose the squad could be in.
Alistair, something funny about this, because Diagonale spoke, I think, on Friday and said Milinkovic Savic will be ready for the first game of the season of the restart Serie A. He came back one day afterwards, So why say something like that and don't say, no, it's nothing, he will be back next week?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, we've talked before about the public messages from the team, so I'm not sure. I mean, well, the one thing I suppose with the club off the pitch has been doing a few things, and this is one of the other questions we've had about from Jeppe Nielsen was about, will the cardboard versions of yourselves be present for the coming games? So firstly, I want an answer from you, and secondly, you might need to explain what this question means in case people don't know.
I never thought about it.
Never thought about it?
About doing it. I think it's 40 quid, something like that.
Yeah, 40 euros.
40 euros. So basically, the great idea Lazio had was, okay, the stadium is empty, but we can fill it with a cardboard box of fans. So fans can pay 40 euros and get your face on the stadium, which it's I can see something bad happen. Absolutely, people making stupid things and no one checking.
Yeah.
It's thought, but
you're not tempted then?
I'm not sure.
I mean, I have seen people have complained about the price, and yeah, maybe you can see why, because people are quite short of money right now. But at the same time, it is for a good cause, because a share of it is going to the Red Cross in Italy. So it is, for me, I was just struck by what a good initiative it is. I mean, it's quite un-Lazio-like in terms of being both ahead of the curve, something that the other Serie A clubs haven't been doing, and charitable on top of that, and something for the fans, really, and something for the international fan base even, although it has to be said, they haven't actually written any of this in English for anyone anywhere, so it's Google Translate, I'm afraid, guys, if your Italian's a bit rusty. But yeah, you can get your face on a sign, and they'll be signed by Senad Lulic when the stadium reopens as well, and then you can get it, pick up your sign with his signature, apparently. So that'll be a nice thing for him to do while he's injured, is going through about 20,000 cardboard cutouts, signing them up.
Yeah, but if you're in America, how can you get it back? They
Well,
ship
this
it
is
back.
what I'm not sure. Yeah, they didn't mention if they're actually going to post the ones to foreign people or not. But
By the way, Alistair, talking about international things, Lazio announced a joint venture. They're going to launch their social account on Weibo, if I'm not wrong, on WeChat.
yeah.
That are two biggest social platform on China. I know we have a follower from China, so he's going to be happy. But didn't they forget English? I mean, okay, China, it's a big country, big football fans, etc. But if I'm not wrong, still English is the number one spoken language in the world. I mean, I would start from the top. Yeah, Portuguese wouldn't be my top priority. I would start from English and then maybe Chinese, Portuguese, and French.
Yeah,
Still,
my
if
favorite part of that. Sorry, my favorite part of that was Di Martino came out afterwards and started talking about how they're internationalizing the club and everything. It's just, oh, come on.
I don't know if anybody noticed, but on the official website of Lazio, there is the on top the English written, and you click it, you say, oh, well, I go to the English version of the website, and it's the Italian website without articles. So that's not very difficult to do it in English. You can do it even in Spanish if you want. You keep it all that like that, no article, nothing but English. Okay.
Yeah, one of these days they'll listen to us,
Yeah.
Vittorio.
Yeah.
One of these days.
And Alice, the funny thing about that is because they said that Lazio won the Supercoppa there in China, right? And then so Lazio is very popular, and that's why they did it.
Well, it's a big market.
I totally agree, but in English you reach everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, even in Scotland they speak English, right?
Well, kind of debatable. um, but yeah, no, I mean, no, I think it's a really good move. Don't take that away. But at the same time, yeah, you're right. It's I don't think they can, as a club, try and claim that they're globalizing massively if they've not even taken care of having any content in English. So it's just us, I'm afraid, for now, guys. Yeah. Next question. I thought was quite an interesting one from Alexander Mikkelsen, kind of bringing it back to football again. Just before the lockdown, everybody around the team was focused on the next game, one step at a time, not thinking of the Scudetto. Now, on the other hand, the team is speaking of Scudetto as a goal. What's changed? Is this healthy for a team which has never been in the Scudetto race before?
I think what changed, Alistair, is that they have had plenty of time to think about it. Before they had to play match, to prepare for the next match, they didn't have that much time to focus, watch the table and say, hey, one point behind you. Now they had plenty of time. They could focus only on that. And so that's why they're talking about the Scudetto. I think before it was like, we know it, but we don't want to talk about it. Now they don't have any excuse, which can be dangerous in a certain point because we said it. The first 4 matches are really important for Lazio. And if you arrive thinking we can win the Scudetto and you don't start very well, then you can get frustrated. You can get, demotivated, and things bad can happen. So, from one side, a lot of people believe that Lazio is the team that has more motivation compared to Inter and Juventus, etc., which I could agree with. But on the other side, there's the risk of being too much focused, too much motivated, and you have difficult matches at the beginning of the season, of the restart of the season. And to be honest, nobody knows how the players are of each team, not only Lazio. So it can be dangerous.
Yeah, it's an interesting point though, because I think there was definitely a certain point at which that changed and that message changed, I suppose, and it took me quite a long time as well, and you to actually start considering that this might be a Scudetto race and something more than just trying to qualify for the Champions League. And I think that's probably because we've been burnt before and we don't want to get too carried away. But I mean, for me, it was the Inter game that changed it. That was the moment at which I first said publicly that I thought Lazio could actually do this. That was a huge moment. And don't forget, that moment came just, 2 weeks before the shutdown. So I think that timing as well is maybe a big part of it, because if you've got that big a result, which opens up the gap between second and third, but is just mentally, the stimulus you get from a result like that is huge. You know, this team have already beaten Juventus twice this season. Now they've gone and beaten Inter. I mean, they'll be just feeling invincible at the moment. And we talked a bit about momentum last week, but I just don't think that they really have any kind of self-doubt left anymore. I think this team have just done so much right this season that it's almost got to a point where they just can't help but believe in it, because they look at the way they're playing, they look at the unity in that squad, and then they look around them at the Juve team that are supposed to be challenging them, the Inter team that are supposed to be challenging them, and they'll just say, hey, these teams aren't up to much.
Yeah, I agree. This is a very important point. Before the stop, Juventus beat Inter, but wasn't playing great football. I think the last month or so, Juventus was playing badly. Inter was really going down. I mean, I think Inter lost the last 2 matches they played, and you can see like the team was really going downwards. Juventus had quality players, but they weren't playing great football. So we have to be honest and say that Lazio was the team playing better football in the last couple of months. So obviously they thought, we can make it. The problem is restarting now. You don't know if it's going to be like that. We know that, Juventus is having some problems. Higuain is not 100% fit. Rabiot had problems, etc. Inter players just get back. So you hope that the season will restart like it was ending, so that would be a great advantage. But unfortunately, with a match every 3 days, it's going to be important how the players will recover. I mean, the biggest difference now is going to be how the players are going to recover, get back the energy, because they don't have that much time to train. They just have to recover, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And so far anyway, touch wood, no serious injury problems other than Senad Lulic. So, he's an important player, obviously, but in terms of the guys we absolutely don't want to lose at any point, they're still alive, still standing up. So that's good. Another question, Steven Scarpula said, when he wrote in capital letters, he is not considering the word if. We qualify for the Champions League next year. Do you see anybody in the current squad that will be sold off as they're not of the requisite quality?
Do we consider Lukaku part of the squad?
Cheerleader. Yeah, well, of course he is. I mean, he's a registered player, isn't he? So. Or is he even a registered player? I don't know if he is anymore.
But he's not back in the squad, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's obviously a bit of dead weight that around the squad, like Lukaku, that will need to be got rid of. But in terms of the guys who are actually in the current squads, like he says, I don't think it's necessarily so much a case of getting rid of guys as adding guys, because when it comes to a Champions League campaign, I think we need the overall quality of the squad to be raised. Like, I think that Stefan Radu is a dependable defender in a Serie A match or in a Europa League match, but I think in the Champions League, he's someone I'd rather see ready to come off the bench rather than in the starting lineup, especially when he's a year older. The same could be said in a number of other positions, to be honest. I think the defence is probably the part that worries me the most, even though it shouldn't by now because it's improved so much over the last season. But I just think generally the quality of the squad needs to be lifted, and it's not really a case of who you get rid of, because the squad isn't that big as it is, that I think if it's easy to say, okay, you sell Bastos at the end of the season, but then if you sell Bastos and bring in another defender who's better quality, you've still got a pretty thin, number of defenders in your squad overall.
And I think left back, it's a big concern. We're showing now that Marusic have been tried on the left back now with Lulic out. So this tells you that Inzaghi is not 100% sold on Johnny. And imagine playing 3-5-2 with Johnny on the left in Champions League. I mean, that's too dangerous. So we have to sign a couple of players there. I don't think even answering to who is it? Seven Scarpula again, who's asking about the rumors about Milinkovic Savic. I don't think Lazio will sell a top player, and I don't think Milinkovic Savic is going to be sold if nothing huge happens, which I don't believe is going to happen. But Lazio should get the Champions League money and should be able to sign a couple of good players, which I think both of us believe it has to happen. Because if you have to play Champions League, you have to improve the squad depth. We talked already about how Cataldi is important, but we need Cataldi in other type of Cataldi in different position, left back, defense, even a Vichy Immobile, So we're gonna see what happens. We forgot to mention, Alice, that it's official, right? The transfer market will start in September and end the beginning of October.
So, I think it's 1st of September till the 4th of October, or the other way around. I can't remember. But so the different transfer market this year. Yet to find out what's happening with contracts, because, like we say, in about 2 weeks' time, half of Serie A is going to run out of contract, but including at the moment Cataldi, Lulic, and Barolo. But you would assume. I mean, I was saying this last week, thinking confidently, something will get sorted soon, but it still isn't. So, another mystery. We don't want to lose those 3 players as soon as the season restarts.
Yeah, that's going to be funny. Let's not forget that Milan is in the same situation with Ibrahimovic. So, there are a lot of players with contract expiring. And what happened with the loans player, right? There are a lot of players on loan. So Lazio announced just that all the players on loan will stay there except Durmisi because Ligan has been terminated. So from the 1st of July, Durmisi is going to be back. Now, I don't know if they can add it to the team.
There's your left wing back problem solved.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking. He could be a solution.
I would assume so. I mean, I don't see why not. If the French season is finished and his loan is deemed to be over, then I don't understand why not. I mean, I guess you're not in a window at the moment is the problem, but
I don't know if he was in the list of the 25 players.
I'm not sure.
At the beginning of the season, but I think from January he has been dropped, right? Well, we can check.
Yeah. Well, one other, just from what's been going on this week, another one worth keeping an eye on. We talked about Raul Moro very briefly last weekend in terms of young guys coming in, and Nicolo Armini now has supposedly agreed a new contract, which is good news, and has also been training with the first team as well. And this is a guy I think because he's the captain of the Primavera, has been talked about as one of our best young prospects. I think that's quite an interesting one to keep an eye on as well. In terms of who might be the surprising additions to this squad or get opportunities with the 5 subs and so on, he's perhaps one to keep an eye out for.
I like Raul Moro. It's a player that I saw in Primavera. I think physically he's a little bit too small, but he can be really interesting, especially if you think he comes in the last 20 minutes with his speed, with his technique, with the defenders that are fatigued, tired. He can be a nice surprise. And talking about Armini, Alistair, he's been training with the first squad and he's been playing on the right side, like right back.
Yeah.
This is interesting because obviously thanks to that, Marusic moved to the left side. And I think I said it already in the podcast. In the last matches of Primavera, instead of playing central defender, he was playing on the right back. And at a certain point, once Lazio played with the 3-5-2, and he was playing as a fifth midfielder on the right side. So, which is surprising because it's not his position, but he played there. So this could
And
be
he's left-footed.
Yeah, but
so if you've got Marisic on the left and Armini on the right, it's kind of inverted wingers.
Yeah,
which isn't, that's not the way that Inzaghi usually plays with his wing backs. Wants them to get in crosses on the touchline, but yeah, interesting. I mean, I would have thought that would be a more defensive scheme, and also I would have thought in training it might just be happening to kind of make up the numbers a little bit as well, given the lack of options in those positions. But I mean, I think I saw in one of the games Faris was playing at left wing back in the training games, so I don't think that means that Faris is going to be starting against Atalanta, but who knows?
Yeah, I think last week they played a match 10 against 10 because they didn't have enough player. So we're gonna see what happened. Obviously, there's even Luca Falbo that has been added to the first squad. He's left. He can play left back, left winger, etc. So he can play in a lot of different positions. Again, his contract is expiring in June, so that's going to be curious. But yeah, Lazio has not that many options, honestly, there.
How about this question from Simon? He says, "Afternoon, guys. I was due to be flying out tomorrow for the opening game of the Euros in Rome. Sorry to hear that. I was also very excited about that. With the finals being delayed until next summer, which Lazio players do you think could benefit from this 12-month delay? And likewise, anyone who could miss out a year down the line?" So in terms of players and their international hopes, I think it's an interesting question because you would have thought that the timing was perfect for a lot of Lazio players because most of them are having the season of their lives. So what strikes you from that question?
Well, maybe, some young players could improve. Luis Alberto was having a great season, but who knows if he was starting in Spain. Instead, next year, maybe he could have more chances if he still improve like that. I think for Acerbi is not a good sign because 1 year older, truth to be told, I don't see rising stars in defense for Italy, so I don't think the competition is gonna increase. To be honest, I see, Romagnoli didn't play a great season.
Bastoni, maybe. I mean, he looks pretty good.
I'm not sure. Let's give it a go here. So Immobile as well. He's not getting any younger. Maybe Danilo Cataldi gets another chance, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think for most players, it's a bad thing, really, because even Ciro, right, he's a great example because even now, when he's scoring about 1 million goals a day, even now he still has the majority of Italy fans saying they don't want him in the team. So if he's going to have a season like this and still struggle to convince anybody that he's worthy of a starting place, in a year's time, he's going to have done something absolutely incredible, won the Ballon d'Or, really, and then they still won't want him in the team. But Acerbi, I think, is really unlucky from the timing, not only because of the age, but also because of the fact that his timing was working out really well. He'd come into the team at the start of this year and was playing really well. And with Chiellini coming back from his injury, and like you say, not many other impressive options right now, I think that was his starting place to lose this season. Whereas a year later, you've got, I know what you mean, there aren't tons of options coming out of the woodwork, but I think the competition will probably be greater for him. But yeah, I mean, Alberto, again, I don't know what more he has to do, to get in the Spain team than what he's done already.
Yeah, but one thing is getting in the squad, one other is starting, and the competition in Spain is huge. So if he starts playing in the Champions League and play well, I mean, you cannot do nothing else. you have to start him. So
Yeah,
maybe
that's true.
even with Ciro Immobile, if Lazio qualifies to the Champions League and Ciro starts scoring, I mean, I don't believe Roberto Mancini can still say, well, Belotti is the same level, or let's wait Balotelli. Balotelli's done, and Belotti will never have a chance to play on Champions League. So, or you play Ciro or you play Ciro. I don't know if someone else is going to come out. Could be, but...
Yeah, the one other one is Lazzari, really. I mean, he could benefit from an extra year just because, as well as the Champions League football, he just wasn't getting in the team at all. There was no way he was going to the Euros this summer, despite definitely deserving a place in that squad. So maybe an extra year. If he continues playing like this, there's no way Mancini can just continue to ignore him. And it's not like Italy have loads of good right backs either. So, if he's really choosing Florenzi instead of Lazzari in a year's time, I'll give up on the sport, I think. But
I think if they pick Florenzi after this terrible season, Mancini has some problems with Lazio because, not starting Ciro Immobile every match, playing Florenzi, not Lazzari, etc. There's something wrong with him. Definitely.
Just before we finish up, I mean, we've got a couple of questions about some transfer rumours we've had over the last week or so. I mean, one from Arvid was about the suggested interest in Ajax's young, talented midfielder Ryan Gravenberch. He says he's a tall lad at 1.9 meters. Do you know much about Gravenberch?
I'm a big expert.
I don't know if I've said that right either. It strikes me a little bit like a lot of Lazio transfer rumours, this one, where somebody is just kind of putting two and two together because he is a young Ajax player who has Mino Raiola as his agent, and because Mino Raiola is heading to Rome to sort out Armini's contract, somebody's had a look at his list of clients and made this decision that this is what's happening. But I don't know. I don't know much more about this than what the story that Arvid has already sent us a link to from La Lazio Siamo Noi. I mean, it's hard to say.
Yeah, I didn't read nothing about it before, so I don't know. I'm skeptical. We heard so many names linked to Lazio in the last month or so that we can build a squad out of them.
Yeah, the other one was again from Arvid on any truth behind the offer in inverted commas from Lazio for Hearts youngster Aaron Hickey.
Wow, you are excited.
I'm so excited. Never get to answer questions about Scottish players. I mean, yeah, this is quite an interesting one, but I mean, essentially, I think it's bullshit. But the player himself, I think, is quite an interesting one, and he does kind of fit the Lazio profile. He's still just 17 years old. He's a defender, but he's a versatile defender. I mean, I don't want to do him any harm by calling him a Patrick-style player, but he would be able to play in a number of different roles. And given his age and also how cheap he would be for Lazio, because he's only got 1 year left on his contract, and he plays for a team in Scotland who have just been relegated, so they're really going to have to sell. But the issue for me here is more just the fact that this is not a market that Lazio do any shopping in ever. There is supposed to be a lot of interest in him from clubs in England, in Bayern Munich in Germany even, and obviously Celtic in Scotland, which I still think is predictably the most likely place he ends up. So although I would like it to happen, I still would be amazed if Lazio ends up being the team he ends up at.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I read an article last week about this. I think it was, I don't remember, but the title was Lazio on this player. And then you read the article and Lazio was mentioned once and saying, it looks like Lazio had saw a video of this player, and that's it.
Yeah.
And from there, everything, La Lazio siamo noi took this article, etc., which didn't make any sense. I mean, Lazio was hardly linked.
Monitoring progress.
Yeah. A little bit like Hagi, right? There have been a lot of rumors of the son of George Hagi linked to Lazio, but he has a contract with Rangers. Rangers announced, I think, officially that they're going to renew his contract, and still people are saying Hagi is going to come to Lazio. I don't see it happen. I don't think Hagi is a Lazio player yet, so I don't think, as you were saying, not a lot of Scottish players finish in Serie A, so I don't see it happen. I'm sorry for you.
Yeah. No, it's a shame. It would make me feel more at home if he turned up, but no, I can't really see it happening. I mean, it's, the thing is, Lazio, when I mention it's not a market Lazio shopping, it's just generally the UK isn't, and it's not, Ravel Morrison aside, obviously, but there are certain countries perhaps or leagues where you might, whether it's in Eastern Europe or whether it's in Belgium, where you might think that this has a bit more weight for it simply because of the number of contacts that Iglitari has over there and the history he has of scouting there successfully and so on. Lazio may well have watched Hickey. I can believe they've watched videos of him. I mean, he is a very talented young player, so you would hope that they're aware of his existence, but I think there's a long way to go between that and him becoming a Lazio player. So,
yeah, it was funny. Last week, I think it was the interview of Iglitari on Sky, and now I don't remember the name. There was this Brazilian player that has been linked to Lazio for how long? A week, 2 weeks, and said Lazio was really close. And they asked the name. They asked Tari about it, and he said, "Honestly, I don't even know who it is." So this to tell everybody that, especially in Italy, there are a lot of rumors that are completely nonsense.
Yeah, and Lazio, we've talked about this before, but Lazio are a very closed book with this stuff. They don't really give much away. There aren't that many journalists who actually have an inside line or really know what they're talking about with this stuff. So I'm very kind of skeptical and generally pay quite little attention to these kind of stories at the best of times. But right now, where we've got coronavirus and all the complications around it as well, I pay even less attention to a lot of this stuff, if I'm honest.
Yeah, let's not forget that at the moment, obviously, all the sport directors are thinking about signing players, who players we would need, etc. They start from February, since as soon as the winter transfer market ends, they already start to program for the summer. But now, even though they are watching players, studying, etc., they don't know the budget they're going to have this summer. And this is key. Not only they have to study the situation of the club they're going to buy out of, for example, France club, for me, they're going to struggle this year. So probably if, for example, Lazio goes out and try to sign Depay, they're not going to spend 40 million euros because French club are going to struggle because they lost a lot of money. So maybe they're going to spend 20 millions. They're going to accept an offer of 20 millions. But on the other side, even Italian clubs lost a lot of money. Are Lazio going to be able to offer that type of money, or they're going to have to change the targets because of that? So I'm not sure that the sports director knows how much money they're going to be able to spend this summer. So it's quite impossible to say, okay, Lazio is going to get this player or this other one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's why, I just feel like I'm paying less attention than usual to transfer rumours right now. And whether it's Milinkovic-Savic or not, I mean, the one thing that is clear by now is that it doesn't really matter what happens in the world, whether it's a normal season, a bad season, or a good season, or a global pandemic. Milinkovic-Savic will always be on the verge of moving to either Man United or PSG. It doesn't matter what is happening.
Yeah, and last offer was ridiculous, 60 million euros. I mean, what is it, a joke? And, the fact is, anyway, Lazio is not in a bad financial situation, so they are not forced to sell Milinkovic-Savic. So, or someone comes and offer the money Lotito wants, or it's not going to happen. Milinkovic Savic just bought a new big house near Formello, near the training center of Lazio.
And a nice little bike to get to training on.
Yeah, so this means that he's quite happy staying there. So he's not going to push. And I read a couple of French websites saying that Milinkovic Savic really wants to go to Paris Saint-Germain. Yeah, and then you buy a villa near the training center of Lazio because you want to leave. It doesn't make sense, guys. So
it's great reverse psychology on his part.
So all they're going to come and offer the money Lotito wants, or it's not going to happen.
And it's been that way the whole way along.
Yeah.
Said that from we were having this conversation when we first started this podcast, I think 3 years ago.
I think so. Yeah.
Lotito sets a price. He isn't joking. That is the price, and he's not going to bend. So and the one caveat to that is obviously if Milinkovic Savic was the kind of character who wanted out and wanted to demand to leave, but he never has before, and that's not what he's doing now. So. Yeah.
And this happens in the good and bad times, right? Even when Lazio tried to sell a small player or a player that is not anymore in the team, Lotito wants the price he wants, and he's not going to accept anything lower. That's why Djordjevic stayed for Lazio for a couple of years, and so on. A list of players that were useless stayed to the club because Lotito wanted the asking price. If he didn't get it, well, he stayed in the club. So.
Yeah, so there we go. I think we're through all the questions finally, and through a minor rant about Milinkovic Savic, but it wouldn't be a podcast without that.
No, we're going to call it the Milinkovic Savic Lounge next time.
Yeah. I think it's just because we're in June now, so as soon as it comes June, I think there's some sort of natural switch in your brain as a Lazio fan where you have to start talking about Milinkovic Savic transfers again, so...
Yeah, now that Serie A is going to restart, it's going to be incredible, right? We're going to have transfer market rumors and talking about football matches, probably, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah,
hopefully.
Alistair, thank you again for joining me. And guys, please, as Lazio hasn't got an English channel, subscribe to our podcast so you get all the latest news about Lazio in English. You can find us on Spotify, Spreaker, iTunes. Rate and review the podcast on iTunes, please. Alistair love to read all your reviews, so please do it. And remember, we are also on YouTube, and you can support our channel on patreon.com/Lazio Lounge. Goodbye, everybody. We're going to talk again next week. Ciao, ciao.